have the Mayor Designate of Warsaw here, so many thanks for attending and welcome. And we have colleagues from Wolverhampton, the Royal Hospital here, as well as people who've come further afield, and one of Professor Gatrad's colleagues has come all the way from Edinburgh. We are very excited to have this event. It has been quite a long time in sorting out because we're talking about somebody who's very busy. I think all of you know that. So finding a time in his diary when we could have this inaugural lecture has taken us actually almost 3 years. Because in fact, Professor Gatrad has been an honorary professor of this university for almost 3 years. So I'm very pleased we've finally managed to sort out a time. I could, just before I start by just telling you a little bit about Professor Gatrad, and I guess Olivia will probably be able to tell you more. I just want to say that we are filming this event, which is our standard practice for public lectures. And I know that she doesn't mind this at all, but I just wanted to say, if anybody doesn't want to be filmed, we're not actually going to be looking at the audience. It'll be really looking at the speaker, but just to be aware, and if you have any concerns, please let me know afterwards. I'll make sure you're not visible on the film. But otherwise, it will be filmed, and we're pleased for that, particularly tonight, because I understand very sadly, Mrs. Gatrad is not here because her mother is very ill, and so she's having to look after her. And she's very, very sorry not to be here, I know, but I have been able to reassure Sabina, your daughter, that it's being filmed, so your mum will be able to see it, and so I hope that will help. So, just to say that I think the reason that Professor Gatrad was made an honorary professor at this university was because of his exceptionally distinguished career and because of the massive contribution he's made both internationally, nationally and locally. And to just give you a flavour of some of the things, I will read a little bit because there's a lot here and I want to make sure I capture it all. But first of all, internationally, you were born in Malawi and educated in Zimbabwe, and then in Harrow, and then you studied medicine at Leeds University. So quite a change of geographical location in a very short period of time, and completed training at Manchester. She's a consultant paediatrician at the Manor Hospital, a senior lecturer at the University of Birmingham. We will not hold this against you. And he holds professorships both at this university and the Kentucky University. And indeed, were actually came in the House of Lords with support from His Royal Highness Prince of Wales, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, and the then Chief Officer, Medical Officer, Sir Ian Donaldson. Professor Gatrad has, and I can verify this because I've seen it, over 50 peer-reviewed publications, and has also been the editor of various professional and academic journals. For the College of Paediatricians, where he is a postgraduate examiner, he co-authored the Withholding Care document for the Ethics Committee, and this is now the gold standard in all UK paediatric departments and ethics committees. She is internationally recognised by Rotary and was awarded the Paul Harris Fellowship for working in third world countries and bettering understanding between peoples of the world, which is a massive achievement. And very importantly, he is the founder, patron, chief executive and director of strategy for the Midland International Aid Trust, which I know is an absolute passion that Ravi has worked very closely with his colleague, Mr. Aslam, to found. And this International Aid Trust does really important work across the world, particularly focused on health issues. He's also served as the Clinical Director of Paediatric Services at Warsaw, with Head of Child Protection and also Postgraduate Tutor. He is past President of the West Midlands Regional Paediatric Society and holds the National Award for Clinical Excellence. And not least, in 2002, His services to paediatrics were recognised with an overleave which he received from the Queen. So, no further ado, I will pass you over to our keynote speaker. I'm delighted to introduce Professor Gatrad. If you please join me in welcoming him.
Well, Linda, your introduction was probably as long as my lecture was, or is going to be. Anyway, first of all, thank you very much for that introduction. Interestingly, looking around, either I've worked with some people, or I have delivered the children, or I have looked after their kids. So it's nice to see you in different guises today. I didn't realize that some of the people that I was going to meet today, in fact, there's one person I spoke to earlier on. I looked after her daughter 30 years ago, in fact, and fortunately she survived in spite of my involvement, which I think is excellent. Well, first of all, could I take this opportunity of thanking a lot of people that have given up a lot of their precious time to be here. Some people from far away, like you've mentioned, Aziz Sheikh from Edinburgh, and Nick Hart, who's come from Hull. So people have given up a lot of the time to be here. As Piers Morgan, and I don't know whether you watch his program or not, but sometimes he comes up with some goodies. Piers Morgan would say, everybody has a story to tell. And mine is about moments in time when individuals have helped shape the direction of my life. And it is really a tribute to people that have done this. So this lecture basically is a tribute to people who've helped me get to where I have got to. So the way I'm going to sort of look at this lecture in a rough sort of way is that we're going to look at moments in time of what's happened and how things happened. And running through the entire talk is going to be a theme of sort of public health, prevention of disease, equality and social justice, and will in the end sort of finish off with what I think we should be aspiring to. Now, parents always play an important part in anybody's life, and my parents were no exception. On my first day at school, and in fact, that's my sister there, and I bring her into the picture because you can see her leg there, and that is calipers. She's got polio. Steps of this particular school, I remember, my dad took me there, introduced me to a Mrs. Fernandez. She was the first teacher I ever had. And he said to her, make him a doctor. Now this, as you would know, is something that every Asian parent, they want their child to be a doctor. I don't know what's happening nowadays, but perhaps it's dentists, but it used to be doctors anyway. So that's what happened. And from that day, sort of my life was fixed. That's what I was going to do. But I still wanted to have some say in what I did, and cricket was something that I really enjoyed. And there was a particular person called Aziz Osman. He was my sort of mentor, my guru. I looked up to him. And he was a famous cricketer. And he said to me, why don't you go to Zimbabwe and play cricket there? Because he used to go to Zimbabwe, and he was a phenomenal cricketer. But to do that, you had to get a scholarship. So anyway, having got a scholarship, having got there, I completed my work there, finished my A-levels, but there was nowhere to go. This is Founders High School in Bulawayo, which was Rhodesia in those days. But there was nowhere to go because of apartheid. Apartheid meant that non-whites couldn't go to university. So I had two choices, either to go back and join up with my dad in his shop, or alternately to come abroad and see the world. So it was a latter action, fortunately, that my dad decided that I should take. So hence, I'm here. Having finished Founders, I arrived in England in December 1963 at a tender age of 15, thinking that schools actually started here in January, because in Africa they started in January, the school year started in January. So I was shocked that nobody actually would want me in September. But here again, I met this chap called Aziz Osman, who is now becoming somewhat of a savior. And this man, I can tell you, has played a huge part in my life. His very presence, doesn't matter where, he's a bit like Stilion Petrov, who is with us here, captain of Aston Villa. When you are on the pitch, people are scared of you. And they were scared of him. He was a phenomenal cricketer, brilliant chap. Unfortunately, he died playing cricket in India just recently, a couple of years ago. And there's me, perhaps just gone through puberty there, and that's his wife. So, he put me right, and he taught me self-discipline, and that nothing was impossible if you put your mind to it, had faith in yourself, and did things properly. What do I mean by that? I wanted to do A-levels in 1 year. He said, you are not going to do that. Do it in 2, do it properly, and you will get there. Remember, I was just a young lad of 15 who had come from Africa, a third world country, wanting to have this grand idea of becoming a doctor. I didn't really have any clue as to what the medical career involved, but when I got there, I realized that nobody had even given me any career guidance. And I was always sort of pictured myself, as you do, with a stethoscope around my neck, white coat, and these lovely nurses around you, you know. So, you know, that was sort of the vision I went to university with. But little did I know that once I got to university, I was to find a unique synergy of clinical care, discovery, innovation, empathy, and emotion. Collectively over the years, my experiences were to teach me that medicine extended well beyond looking after ill people. I cannot talk about people who have had a huge influence on me without mentioning my wife, of course. She, the little pretty redhead that I bumped into when I was putting an intravenous line and perhaps showing off a little. Suffice to say that we got married, and 4 decades on, she's stuck to me, and I'm very grateful for her support. I'm really sorry she's not here today. Moving on quickly after we finished uni, and I'd finished doing some work in Manchester, Val and I were traveling for my umpteenth interview for a consultant post in pediatrics. Now, pediatrics has always been a hot specialty, more so 25, 30 years ago we're talking about. And this was my umpteenth interview. I was going down to Walsall, having exhausted all the alphabets. You know, been through Bury, been through Bristol, been through Bradford, you name it, we'd been there. Now, we were going down the M6, this is, just as it was built, there were some major roadworks there anyway. And we were stuck. We could not move. And remember, in those days, there were no mobile telephones. I really and truly needed this job because my younger brothers and sisters were coming on stream. My younger sister is here. We had to make sure that we had to look after them. So I really needed this job. So I pleaded with my wife and I said to Val, could you please get out of this car? Get hold of one of those yellow phones and ring up the QE and tell them we're stuck and we'll be delayed. Needless to say, she was having none of this. To be fair, by this time our car was moving on, and the idea of her running behind us on the motorway where it was under roadworks was not a good one, I don't think. Anyway, it was at this point, and this is my moment in time, it was this point that I made an intention. Now, I needed this job badly. That if he got me to the interview in time, that I would do something big. Well, we got out of this mess. I got to the QE, and just with a few minutes to spare, and I got the job. So that was like a phew after so many sort of years trying to get there. So having got the job, I'm still here 3 decades later. Now, the promise that I made on the motorway was worrying me. And I was like a fish out of water, because I had to do something, because I had got what I wanted to do, what I wanted to get to. This was until I met a retired bus driver. His name was Yusuf Patel. And his daughter was ill on the ward. We started chatting, and he invited me to his house. And one thing led to another, and he said that there was a need in Walsall to build a community centre and also a mosque at the same time. So I said to him, "Yup, that's not a bad idea. let's go for it. So 10 years later, we were able to do this. What I forgot to mention, however, if I can go back just for a minute, is that just before I got to university, if I could just go back a little bit, sorry, we ran out of money. And the reason why we ran out of money was that Malawi government had stopped sending money. Hence my wanting to make sure that my younger sibs were actually doing well. So this is a little photograph just to remind me that I became a postman for 6 months before going to university. So I apologize for not having shown you the picture later. But coming back to Mr. Yusuf Patel a little later on, we actually went along and it took us 10 years to build this building. It took us 10 years and £3 million. Now at that time, this was one of the biggest buildings there was in Walsall, and people used to come and visit this building. Now I thought that really, having worked with Yusuf, planned and raised funds, that my promise was over. Or so I thought anyway. In the second decade, 2 life-changing events occurred. One was for myself, and the other was for orphans in India. A friend of my dad's came along from Lisbon, and we were sitting in the conservatory, and he said to me, there is a job to do, and you are the one to do it. He said to me that the piece of land that was in India, that belonged to my grandparents, could be donated to charity, and that we could build an orphanage there. And my job was not only to convince my relatives to give that up, but also to make sure that we build it and build an orphanage there. I thought this was a brilliant idea. The convincing was easy, but the building was not that easy. But anyway, having said that, 2 or 3 years later, we were able to build an orphanage for 1,000 children. And it's still going 15 to 20 years later. And we look after 1,000 children and give them all the R's you can think of, and also some vocational training, which I'll come to a little bit later. Whilst all this is happening, and remember I've got a full-time job in Walsall Manor Hospital, and I'm completing a PhD, in walks a young man into our lives, Aziz Sheikh. He will remember this very well. I was coming out of the National Indoor Arena after having chaired a lecture on cancer into the 21st century. And here I heard this voice, Dr. Gatrad, have you got a few minutes? I turned around, and here he was, as large as life, promising GP, and now an eminent professor on his way to Harvard. He has today, as I said, specially traveled from Edinburgh, for which I'm very grateful. Together, we were able to publish 2 books. One was Caring for Muslim Patients, which fortunately HRH, Prince of Wales, was able to give us a foreword on, and the other one, Palliative Care for South Asian Patients, Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs. And I don't know whether Paula McGee is already here, but she's been part of our journey, who has helped us, because she's obviously one of the editors of the journals that we are part of. So thank you for that, Paula, and thanks for coming today as well. These publications open many doors locally, nationally, and internationally, leading to a professorship for both of us, and more importantly, global networking. If there ever was a role of reversal of master and student, here is one. As soon as we got our relationships going, Aziz and I was taking orders from Aziz all the time. And Aziz is, I would imagine, about 15 years more junior to me. And I learned so much from him. Move like lightning, take your opportunities. And you know, he moves like lightning, but he hasn't given me exactly how to do it, although I think I move fairly fast. Had I moved faster, I suppose I might have myself got to Harvard, Aziz. In a community council meeting, moving on a few years on, and a few people from Manor Hospital may not even remember the old place, 1 or 2 of you may do, I met another bus driver. Now, there seems to be some affinity between me and bus drivers. and West Midland Transport for some reason. Here was a man totally devoted to helping others wherever there was a need. Our friendship took root and grew in strength, resulting in the formation of Midland International Aid Trust. MIAT for short. Now, if I could just correct something here. I wasn't the one who founded this. It was Mr. Aslam who founded MIAT, but I actually helped along with it. But he was the founder and my mentor even now. He actually one thing he does do with me is he just tends to control my temper a little bit, which he did yesterday, for which I'm very grateful. But fortunately, I was appointed chief executive of MIAT and also director of all its operations. We all remember the problems in Bosnia in the 90s. With him, I did my first overseas project, and that was something very simple. That was to send braille machines to blind people and to send footballs, something very simple again, to people in Romania. Now, these are children who were held captive under the Ceausescu regime, which I'm sure one or two of you will remember. So we did that. Now, you can see how long ago this is, because Aslam had more weight on him, and I have more hair on my head, as you can see. Over the same period of 10 years or so, we were just sort of beginning to set up some infrastructure of medical projects. And we worked largely in 2 countries, although we had tried some other countries, which I'll come to shortly. And it's in South Africa and Gujarat. And Gujarat is the place, there are 2 Gujarats, one is in India and the other one is in Pakistan. The orphanage that we run is in Gujarat, India. The other medical projects we do is in Gujarat, Pakistan. So with Aslam, we were able to look at various projects around the world. This is in Haiti. He's sitting here with a Haitian child and a green box, which is a shelter box. Each one of these costs £500. And you will see Aslam on most of the slides because I do all the talking and he does all the traveling. He's been to more than 20, 30 countries. He's been to Somalia. He's with Dr. Abdi on here. If I could just point to Dr. Abdi out to you. And he's been to the tsunami, Malawi, and Haiti. The projects that we have done in various countries, and I've highlighted the ones here in black. The highlighted ones are the medical projects. The non-highlighted ones are the non-medical projects. I've not included all of them, but it just gives you a flavor of the sort of things that MIAT can do. Setting up such projects needs an infrastructure of medical equipment and beds. A few years ago, I went to a funeral in Leicester, and I got this young chap after the funeral come along to me and say, I've heard of the work you do, blah, blah. Would you like to do something with me? And you know something, when you do this sort of work, you do get lots of people coming to you, and 99% of them don't connect with you. So I thought, yeah, I think he's one of those guys, you know. Anyway, so he says, what I think we should do is send some equipment around the world. So I said, good idea, how shall we do it? So he says, you can, with your influence, get the hospitals decanting all the unused but usable equipment that is in working order, and I will collect it from you, transport it, store it, and ship it. I thought that's a fantastic idea if it works, because the equipment was free. General Hospital was closing down in Warsaw, as were 1 or 2 other hospitals. St. Giles, I think, was one of the other hospitals that was closing. So I thought this was a brilliant idea. So in this way, we were able to service many, many countries, including India, Pakistan, Nigeria, and South Africa. Malawi even, which is where I was born. So this equipment here is from our Manor Hospital. I should tell you this really, One incubator is working, the other one is not. But interestingly, it's better to keep a baby safe from these guys who are breathing the germs onto the baby. So it does work. Incubators are there, obviously, to keep babies warm. But at least here we can keep babies safe from us. Over here, we've got stuff that has arrived in Nigeria, just about to be transferred to a place called Kano in Nigeria. Now, problems with transporting these things is that you can get them there, but the government themselves do not let the equipment out of the site, and neither do they want to release it, because a lot of people actually want bribery, and we were not prepared for this. So when stuff got to Nigeria and they said they were going to actually throw it out and out into the sea, I said, well, throw it out because you can't send it back to me again. They wanted some money so that they could transfer it on. So in the end, they released the beds, and they did get to where they were supposed to get to. So equipment is something that we have to give, and we continue to do this. Ian is here today. He's just sent me an email. Ian Robertson is here. Yeah, Ian, and thanks for that email. He just sent me a text. We are sending 78 beds next week to one of the hospitals. So we do this constantly, and there are lots of people that play an important part in what we do. High-profile figures such as Bob Geldof and Bill Gates automatically have a high global impact. Whereas people like us, it's absolutely impossible. But it doesn't mean that we cannot bring hope and serve humanity, even if this is in a small way. Bill Gates and others do things globally, whereas when we first set up shop for Mayat, set out to look at a country where we thought, well, let's look at a biggest section of a country. Look at the population, see what the needs are, look at our resources, and see how we can, in fact, service this country. In order to do this, obviously you have got to establish some sort of a need, and you've got to make sure that you trust the people. Now, I thought I could do something in Malawi. Malawi is where I was born, I can speak the language, I have work there, I've got friends there, I've got relatives there. Did I succeed? No. Similarly, I tried South Africa, because I've got some contacts there. I've been on university travel visits, I've been on various journeys there to see what we can do to try and network. Yes, networking occurred. People want to join in. They're willing, but when it comes to finally engaging, it doesn't happen. So, everywhere we went in South Africa, nothing happened, except one place which clicked, and that was the Albert Luthuli Hospital in Durban. Now here enters a new person in our lives. And this man is Joe Giovanni. He's here, I can see him. And Joe and Josette, his lovely wife, were one day looking for a fourth to play tennis. This is how I met them, at David Lloyd. And here he is. Now I tell you one thing about Joe, and that is, if he's got his forehand firing, you don't want to stand in the net. Yeah? It didn't hit me in the leg there, but I can tell you one thing. I was looking for sympathy with that bandage. You don't want to stand in the net. Fantastic player, absolutely phenomenal surgeon, cardiac surgeon, well known around the world. Now he has changed the lives of hundreds of people in South Africa. He spearheads our cardiac project in South Africa, and he's going there again this October. For us to be successful in life, we have to have 3 E's. Now, if I was giving a lecture to medical students, I would talk to them about respiration. Respiration also needs 3 E's. You need the effort, you need the efficiency, how well the air goes in, and the effect, which is you become pink because the oxygen is going in. In this context, we have to put the effort in to see how much we are putting in. What work are we doing to get there? How well are we doing this, which is the efficiency with which we're doing it, and the effect of it, which means we have got to audit our work. These 3 E's must be underpinned with commitment, leadership, and team working to ensure that we provide, as a group, public health in the widest context that I'm talking about. So public health in a very coordinated sort of way. So what is public health? Well, public health is not only a science, but it's also an art of preventing disease, prolonging life, and promoting health through organized community efforts, such as the global polio projects that the world has been running. This is a polio clinic, vaccination clinic. That's myself in Malawi, trying to vaccinate all these children. I suppose in a sense the children are lucky that we were able to vaccinate them. And it's interesting how children get to these clinics. I don't know whether you've been to one of these. They can't advertise, people can't read. On the day that the vaccination occurs, there are women singing songs which say, bring your baby over here in their own language to say you'll be looked after well, you will have a jab, and your baby will be healthy afterwards. It's like a sing-song. And this is how it happens on the day. So whilst I'm doing all this, I can hear this music, which is without any instruments, but fantastic, sort of in rhythm, all these Malawian women singing songs to bring all the people in so that we can vaccinate them. So public health is also about improving sanitation, controlling communicable diseases, for example, through clean water and educating individuals. Whilst our work cannot be global, we are proud to be associated with other organizations, such as the Oak Tree Trust, which is a Christian organization, in its irrigation project in Niger. Now, Ian Robertson, as I mentioned to you, is here, and we work with Ian on this irrigation project. So these projects are not necessarily just providing people with ideas, but also making sure that they are learning how to do things. So it's part of an education process. The ubiquitous founder of Mayat is always there, Mr. Aslam, this time in Bangladesh, providing people with clean water. He's also in Somalia, where he went last year, providing people with water through water wells, and we had 4 water wells in Somalia. So public health is also about organizing medical and nursing services. And why do I mention that? This is to ensure that we have early diagnosis, such as the breast self-awareness project that we run in Gujarat. Now, very recently, over the last few months, we had a Miss McManus, who is a consultant breast surgeon. She went to Gujarat. She wanted to go to Gujarat. She was looking for something to do, and she found us. So we got her there. And she's now been made an honorary professor from the University of Gujarat. She's there teaching people, training people how to train others in self-breast examination. We have provided them with transport so that mums can go, women can go into the villages to do some field work and bring women back so that they can be serviced if they found lumps in their breasts. So there's something very positive you can do with not that much money. We have, however, provided them already, because last year, I don't know whether some of you were there or not, we did a huge project to raise money for the breast awareness, where we raised monies for the mammogram and also for the ultrasound machine. Basic maternity care, preventing disease, which I'm going to come to a little bit later in detail, and developing a social structure to ensure that everyone benefits is also a prerequisite for an equitable public health program, because this is all about health of the public in a land far away. This is because we have to be equitable, because Bill Gates, and I quote him, "Every life has equal value. The expressions of human dignity and sanctity of life have to be respected as we are all born equal." Treating everybody equally is social justice. And when we provided 80,000 sleeping bags to people in Pakistan after the floods, with 8,000 tents, we stipulated that we should give all these tents first to the Hindu population, because Hindu population would not get it otherwise in a Muslim country. So we stipulated that. Mr. Aslam went there personally. He was there for 2 months, and we made sure that we had all these 8,000 tents equitably distributed to the population there. Similarly, when we set up the cleft lip and palate project in Pakistan, and in Pakistan there's a very high incidence, as Nick knows, of cleft lip and palate. And just for those people who don't know what this is, and I apologize if I'm insulting your intelligence, cleft lip is slit lips children are born with. Palate is where the top bit of the mouth is not working. So when a baby is born, not only does it look awful, can't feed, problems with hearing, infections, you name it, plus the fact that can't speak very well either. So it is a horrendous problem. 1 in 500 babies have this in Pakistan. So it is a big problem. It may be that it is related to consanguinity, which is marriages between cousins. But anyway, whatever it is, the problem is there. We stipulated, just to make sure this is equitable to everybody, that the girls should get this first, because boys in such countries, which is sort of man-dominated, tend to come first. We stipulated that the girls should be operated first. So the girls were operated first so that they have a chance of getting married at least. That is so important for these girls. Now, our cleft lip and palate project that Nick and his colleagues run is so successful that Smile Train wants to work with us now. Smile Train, as you know, is the organization that's international, has got fantastic, worldwide outlets. They want to work with us. And Nick and his team operate on 200 children twice a year. So you can imagine what workload that is. And these guys are giving up their time, leaving their families, and now leaving the grandchildren even to go there. So it is a huge sacrifice that these people are. Now, we've done so well, our teams have done so well, that the Japanese government has given us a grant, which we've spent, and built a shell of a building, and we've called it the Cleft Center. And that center is one of the best in the world. We've got the best results that you can think of. There we are. So there's Nick here with large as life, probably the tallest person here in the building, I should think. And that's the results that we've got. I mean, they're phenomenal. Just imagine being born with that, and this is just sort of, improving, shall we say. You can't compare one from the other. They do a phenomenal amount of work. And this is just one of the projects that can be done by people who give of themselves and go there twice a year to do this, and never complain and want to go again and again. I mentioned to you earlier that we will expand a little bit on prevention. Prevention obviously is a crucial part of public health. After access to clean water, vaccines are probably the most important bits of public health there ever have been in modern history of prevention. We know, for example, from the smallpox story. Smallpox was, as you probably know, some of you, was eradicated in 1978. That this can be done. It was a horrendous problem. It killed you. Polio can also be eradicated. But the campaign started in 1979, and it's still going. The reason being, 1 or 2 countries are not playing ball. 25 years ago, there were 125 countries that had polio. 335,000 children having polio. My sister was one of them. There are now only 3 countries: Nigeria, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Pakistan largely as a result of the Taliban. They're not allowing us to go into those areas. But as far as the Gujarat district is concerned, which is what my undertaking was for those 3 million people, over the last 10 years, we've not had a single case. The challenges of overcoming false religious beliefs and myths that there are concerning these vaccines. What people feel in these 3 countries is that these vaccines are a form of contraception. And that's the reason why they're not having them. They just feel that the West is creating a problem by giving them contraceptive advice, shall we say, through injections. But this can be overcome through continuous, sensitive, and persistent education. But it's got to be sensitive. We've got to understand how people feel. We just can't go and say, no, don't do it. We've got to work with people, and we've got to win their hearts. You see, if we don't do this, then otherwise polio will start spreading to other countries. For example, in Nigeria, there are just 1 or 2 countries left. But because Nigeria didn't play ball, 10 other countries started having polio. So work had to be restarted in those countries to contain this awful, awful disease. Now, again, I don't want to insult your intelligence, but polio is where you have one of your limbs becoming paralyzed and you can't use it. And like I showed you in my sister's case, that you either have a caliper, occasionally you die if it affects your chest wall. And lots of people died. And some of you may remember pictures of what we used to call the iron lung in those days. So it is a horrible, horrible disease, but totally, totally preventable. And this is something that we should be going for. Something that's doable, we should do. Now, I obviously have a particular interest in polio because of my sister, as I said. So we built the Limb Construction Center in Pakistan, which is really a tribute to my dad's quest to try and find a cure for my sister. And Amir Khan, who might or might not have arrived, was part of this particular project because his team approached me to say, we can do this as long as we have somewhere to do it. So I said, okay, we can build a facility for you as long as you guys run it. So we've built the facility, the building, the physiotherapy unit, absolutely beautifully. And these guys are running it. So for prevention, MIAT is not only looking at vaccines, such as polio, but it's also looking at other vaccines. There are other diseases, such as hepatitis C. So we are looking at that. We are making sure that babies have hepatitis B vaccine. So we're doing as much as we can. Now, Sunita and Michael, who I'm going to talk about in a minute, have been to Gujarat, and they've advised mums to have vitamins, iron, folic acid, to make sure that not only the mums are healthy, but also the babies that are born are not born with birth defects. So this is some of the work that they've already done, which I'll come to in a short while. Now, we might think that dental disease is very trivial. It might seem trivial in this country, but it is actually a huge, huge problem in third world countries. Ian communicated with various countries, including Pakistan, and him and I had a chat a couple of years ago. And he decided, at his own expense, to go over to Gujarat because we had the infrastructure of cleft lip palates. We have the infrastructure of having dentists there. So he went along and spoke to thousands and thousands of children in schools, universities, villages on basic, very, very simple dental hygiene. He continues to do this work through the WHO, and hopefully will be able to connect more with Colgate, and he's trying to wangle some money through Colgate in terms of millions, not thousands. So I wish him luck, and I'm with you on this, Ian. Here is Mr. Aslam. Now, I would imagine, really, he's here again. Now, you know something? I would have thought that by now, and I can tell you one thing, he knows a hell of a lot about medicine, but now he knows a hell of a lot about dentistry as well. So it's one person who's got a dental and a medical qualification is Mr. Aslam, I can tell you. Okay, so where are we now? Well, ladies and gentlemen, many, many of these opportunities that I've had to do all this that I've shown you has really resulted from chance meetings and incidents that I call moments in time. And I've only shared some of these with you today. If I could just share yet another moment in time, talking about Maxine, she's here, for example. It was her daughter who was ill, quite ill. We sorted her out, and now Maxine is working with us in our charity office. So it's simple moments. I mean, I've just shared a few with you, But I could spend a whole day talking about probably each and every one of you, in one way or the other, have been involved with us. So the value of lives of those in need is best measured by such moments in time, spent of giving of yourselves and inspiring others. These moments in time are indelibly etched in my heart, and I'm grateful to many, many of you, including many who are not here. And of course, Linda, for inviting me here to talk to you about this. Linda is here, and that's us trying to convince Linda to work with us on a collaborative project. Jill is hiding somewhere, I think there, probably. And I'm trying here, I think probably pleading, in fact, to Richard Kirby to see if I could actually have him help us to do whatever we're trying to do around the world. And he's clicking, he's listening. Not much has happened so far, but at least he's listening. So that's sort of, in a sense, the first bit of the talk that I wanted to give you. The second bit really is about the beyond. And what is the beyond bit? Now, beyond bit really is what we can and do to inspire people. And what should we aspire to? Millions and millions of children around the world die every day. 22,000, in fact, per day. 22,000 a day. Every 4 seconds, one person dies, one child dies, unnecessarily, from preventable diseases. Global mortality has fallen by 75% in the last 50 years. And poverty has decreased by 50% in the last 20 years. So something is definitely happening positively, in spite of the fact that the world population is going up. So we are doing something good. But third world countries, which is what we are talking about here, are always subject to natural and man-made disasters. Man-made disasters is wars. Our goal at MIAT is to make sure that we provide not only all these services, but also nutrition, which is where all these pictures about Mr. Aslam giving food to children is concerned. By giving nutrition to these people, we'll help them grow. If they grow, their brains will grow. If their brains will grow, they'll go to school. If they go to school, they might have employment. They might keep away from disease. They might know a bit about HIV. So education is so, so important. When life or limb is at stake, or our default position should be that we should ensure that everybody realizes his birthright of longevity. In order to achieve this, we need to unequivocally commit ourselves singly and collectively. We have to build trust and systems through developing technology and training trainers through teachers, which is what we are doing. Without teachers, learning dies, and some of you are teachers here. And if learning dies, there'll be no role models for tomorrow to inspire our curiosity. All these objectives that I've talked about form a desirable endpoint that includes self-improvement through education and training, increased competency, enhanced self-awareness, attacking health inequalities, and providing social justice. In other words, we have to continue to provide good health for every single citizen there is, particularly women and children. Now, our project that we have got for the vaginal fistulae is a horrible condition, nasty, as a result, usually, of bad deliveries. Now, we are addressing this through the professionals that we've sent to ensure that we have better care of mothers in labor, so we don't have this vaginal fistulae. What does vaginal fistulae mean? Women start smelling of poo, marriages break down, they have to leave their homes. And quite often these mothers go and commit suicide. So it's a horrendous problem. We can address it, we are addressing it. We have trained 2 surgeons in these operations, so they are doing these operations. But hopefully in time, people like Sunita and Michael will decrease the incidence of this condition, and we will have minimized the fact that this has ever occurred. So if I could just show you some of the work that Sunita and Michael have been doing. They went there for a couple of weeks each, and they completely transformed what maternity care is. I just got a call this morning, you wouldn't believe, from Pakistan saying that Lahore University, which is way out, a couple of hours away, in this tin pot village that we are working in, are sending consultants to come and look at the work that these guys have done. The deliveries that are being carried out now without cesarean section, without intravenous drips. And, pregnancy was thought to be a disease. It isn't. It's just happening. And people used to be in bed for 2 or 3 weeks, and these guys went and got them up. It's right, you've delivered a baby, move. Because they start getting complications of DVTs and things like that. So, early movement, decreased use of blood, a lot of things these people have done. Some simple advice has saved a lot of lives, saved a lot of money, and other people are actually coming from cities to come into our village to have a look and learn from us. That's incredible, I think. Model healthcare, as I've suggested, is multi-professional. You've got nurses, doctors working together, and it's team-based. Therefore, it's not unreasonable to suppose that teams will work efficiently together. Now, here's an excellent team, and here I allude to the best team that we've got. There's a young man there, again, Nick, large as life, and there's his very eminent colleague, Dr. Riaz. And these are girls that have gone from the UK, some are there. So, people work as teams, and they love doing the work, and they come back wanting to go back again. These are the people we are dealing with. Such successful and continuous collaboration is crucial for success. The face of pediatric cardiology, for example, in South Africa, with Mayat supporting Dr. Giovanni's expertise there. Joe has not only carried out many heart operations there, but in the process trained many consultants in various parts of South Africa, and he's drilled them into a cohesive force right across the country in a way that all this education can slowly and gradually be cascaded to other people. So it's not only a question of going there, doing the ops and coming back. It's a question of leaving a legacy, training people so they can train others. So it will be here tomorrow. It will be here today, but not tomorrow, whereas we are leaving some sort of an education which can continue in that country, because we can't keep on sending people. And Joe is getting old as I am, and I think there'll come a time when both of us will stop traveling. Similarly, we've got other teams that we work with, because team working is important. This is Vision International that we work with both in India and in Pakistan. And Vision International, this is in Pune, carrying out these operations, and we've got Dr. Aslam there now. And we've got Mr. Amir Khan's team looking at this young man and sorting him out with his limb problems. So all these are part of teamwork is the operative word. Such ongoing projects provide opportunities for leadership, team building, and striving for excellence in education and training. Not only for the health professionals, but also education for the indigenous people. What do I mean by that? Provision of education is really basically the key for everybody in developing countries. And if you leave children the way they are, they will become disaffected and more than likely go into life of violence and crime. So the most vulnerable in communities need to be picked out, and what little we can do, we are doing. We are getting hold of all these orphans in northwest India, working on them, giving them education, looking after them from the food point of view, etc., and giving them some vocational training. We give them IT training, and we also give the girls, remember I'm very keen on women. It's really true. sewing machines for the women. Okay? Must treat women equally abroad. I know over here it's different, but abroad it's a very different world. So we've got sewing machines here, and there's Mr. Aslam giving instructions again to this chap. So, I mean, the thing is, it's a commitment of one man. I mean, you can see what commitment this chap has got. We have to sensitively break down taboos and empower the disadvantaged to take control of their lives. For example, with self-examination of the breast and making sure that they can actually come to have their subsequent treatment. Let me take a slightly different slant now and talk about pharmaceutical companies, because this is a bedbug of mine. Pharmaceutical industries generate large amounts of profit, not only here, but also in the developing world. Their chief executives are there just to make profits for their shareholders. Presently, I feel that these chief executives are detached and the healthcare needs of the poorest countries are ignored. Africa alone has got 34 out of the 50 poorest countries in the world, and it bears 25% of the world's disease burden. Diarrhea is the second commonest cause of death, second to pneumonia. So something can actually be done about diarrhea. I agree with Andrew Whitty. This is an interesting one. He is the chief executive of Glaxo. He has suggested that there should be a tiered pricing system with prices of vaccines aligned to the ability of the country to pay. In this way, if this happens, these companies will certainly have played their part in the quest for global survival of those who are dying needlessly. His offer of the rotavirus vaccine, which is for prevention of diarrhea, to Gavi, you may or may not know, is Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations, at a fraction of a price, is something that other companies should really emulate. Malaria is another killer. There is no vaccine for malaria at the moment, but when somebody finds a vaccine for malaria, you will be able to save millions of lives. Certainly sub-Saharan Africa is just full of malarial disease. Andrew Whitty, the chief executive of Glaxo, has promised that he will only make 5% profit on the malarial vaccines, and the rest of it he'll plow back into making future vaccines. That, I think, is something that all countries, all companies should do. Nothing happens without money. We keep our own overheads down. Mr. Aslam has been traveling at his own expense for all these journeys. I tell him to take the money out of the charity, he doesn't. We've got people like, my sister Shamim and Maxine working with us totally free of charge. Regularly, they enjoy coming to work. It's the only time I go into the office is when these two guys are there. Otherwise, it's just Mr. Aslam and I, which we see each other 25,000 times a day. So it's always worth, connecting with people, and I'm really pleased and I thank the people that have helped us to do voluntary work. Similarly, these are the sort of countries that Mr. Aslam has visited. I mean, you can go on holiday to these countries. Perhaps you don't want to go on holidays to these countries, but having said that, quite a few countries that he has been to. So what do we have to do? Well, we need to inspire a new generation in the work that we are doing. And people like Sunita and Michael, who I've alluded to, are returning again this year to audit their work. It is through dedication of people like these, who I thank most sincerely, that we continue to have faith in humanity and strive to serve those most disadvantaged. The regular Thursday Skyping that we do is received brilliantly by the University of Gujarat, by this hospital, and we actually do it in tandem. Mike starts off at about 8 o'clock, Sunita does it at 9, and I do it at 10. So, and there's a difference of about 4 hours. So these guys get, 3 lots in one go on one day, which is on a Thursday. So what we have to do basically is to think of simple solutions, like Skyping, for example, to complicated problems. We'll say, well, how can we educate all these people? Well, it can be done through technology. We're Skyping all these lectures. Not easy, mind you. We have a lot of technical difficulties, but we do get there. There has to be a willingness and sacrifice. Where you don't have willingness and sacrifice, it's not going to happen. Let me give you an example. In Malawi, which is where I've got a lot of influence, I've got some negative views about it, as you've already gathered. We tried to put in solar power in the hospital where I was working. I thought this would be fairly straightforward. Get solar power, because whilst I was operating, and I worked there for 18 months in the Malombe hospital, what was happening was we were actually having our electricity cut every so often. So whilst you're operating and electricity is cut, it's no fun for anybody. So here is what we did. They wouldn't have anybody connect with us in the community to try and help us purchase or set up a solar system. So we purchased for them. You can just about see a generator there that we got them. These are the health professionals that I worked with. These are the lovely, lovely nurses that I worked with at Malombe Hospital in Malawi. This is a Catholic hospital, absolutely fantastic. But people were great here, but these are missionary people. I just think that once we've built our own maternity hospital, which is what our next project is. This is the cleft palate project down here, and this is the maternity and the newborn baby project. It has progressed since that picture was taken. I hope that once this is done, we'll be able to put in some solar panels. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, we are nearly getting there. I'm sorry to have kept you so long. With all the global advances in technology and travel, many of us still remain detached from the plight of the needy. In order to redress this imbalance, we need to revive our humanitarian and spiritual values, not based on greed and hatred, but based on understanding and compassion. Such values have shaped civilizations and are bedrock of a civilized society and also world religions. We must also remember that the different religious ideologies and political systems are there for us to achieve happiness rather than witness misery. Each religion works in its own way to lessen human suffering, which should really contribute to a much happier world order. In the words of Bill Gates, and he's one of my gurus, we should be gauged and judged on how well we address deepest inequalities and how we treat a people world away who have nothing in common with us except their humanity. Eradication of disease and poverty is not possible in our lifetime, but we have to try. Life is undoubtedly tough for those we are trying to reach, but we have to be tougher. Although the world has come a long, long way from engaging with people from different faiths, worldviews, and political divides,
this man to actually celebrate all of the other people along the way. I think this is the first time I have ever been thankful to the M6 for a traffic jam, but it clearly works. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just got time for maybe a couple of questions at the most, and we are going to have afterwards the opportunity of talking outside. We have some refreshments. So if anybody has a burning question now, then that would be absolutely great. But equally, if you haven't, we will be able to speak with our distinguished speaker outside. So I'm going to just open up for anybody who wishes to ask a question or comment at this stage. And can I just say thank you to all of you, but most of all, thank you very much indeed,
Pleasure.
Rashid. Thank you.
Thank you.